And here we are. We are talking about what are we talking about? We're talking about a movie that finally came to Netflix recently, that was in theaters last year, that won the Academy Award for Best Special Effects earlier this year, but frustratingly had not had a domestic streaming or physical media release deal. So a lot of the folks who watched the Oscars and said, "Oh my gosh, what is this $15 million Godzilla movie that just creamed all the major, $100+ million Hollywood blockbusters? Where can I watch it? I got to see it now." You had to wait a few months, but now Godzilla Minus One is on Netflix, and if you've had a chance to watch it, we're here to talk about it tonight, and glad to have you along. If you haven't seen it, turn back, because we are going to get into heavy spoilers, and see what all the fuss is about. Last week we talked about the future of movies, and that went for a long time. We're going to keep it a little shorter tonight, hopefully, knock on fake desk wood, but we are going to have a fun, rollicking conversation, at least I hope. Wait a second. Oh, hold on a second. First, we got comments. Miguel Salazar, love this show. Thank you, Miguel. We love you. Although I think you might be biased, because we've been friends for almost 30 years. This is crazy, man. Art school buddy, going way back.
That's awesome.
But yes. All right. Now, who are we? We are Earth's Mightiest Critics. I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have special guest, returning Godzilla. What we're going to call him a Godzilla expert for the purposes of this show, because aside from your friend Ed, I think you might be the biggest Godzilla freak that I know, and I mean that in the best possible way. Yeah. So Bill Goodmanson of Bill's Kitchen, the resin chef himself. You are a model maker extraordinaire, and you've done some great work. And we got a link to your stuff down below, so people should definitely check it out. Don Shanahan of Film Obsessive and Every Movie Has a Lesson, and the Cinephile Hissy Fit podcast. Welcome. Got Annie Banks returning to the show after quite a while away. You pop in every once in a while, but now it looks like you might be on the regular, which is really exciting. So you are with the Mary Sue, and we got this covered, and lots of other exciting things coming up. And we also have Mark, the Movie Man Krawcheck of Special Mark Productions and the Spoiler Room podcast. Welcome, everybody, to Godzilla Minus One. Now, okay, Don. As the resident school teacher,
that's me.
Can you please give us the Cliff's Notes of Godzilla Minus One?
Yeah. So the minus one comes into play in that we meet our human characters earlier than Godzilla's first appearance. In fact, he's kind of tied to Godzilla's first appearance, or at least the first appearance we're going to get. So I want to say our main character, I cannot pronounce his name correctly, and I don't even want to butcher it and try, but a failed kamikaze pilot at the end of the World War II. Kind of, I don't want to say lands for repairs on the island of Edo, only to have an adolescent, mid-size, compact Godzilla show up and bust around a few little things and start the legend of which, oh my gosh, this thing could be coming. Years pass where he returns back to his Japan, finds his family dead and gone. Kind of, I don't want to say shacks up, because that's not quite the term we're going for here, but partners up with another kind of, I don't want to say derelict either, but just kind of wandering soul of a woman who's raising someone else's kid, and they kind of make a life for each other with their nearby neighbors and trying to rebuild the areas of Tokyo where they're at. He gets a job working as a bomb disposal guy after the end of World War II, because there's a whole bunch of landmines out in the Sea of Japan and Pacific Ocean. So he works with other veterans to kind of clear that out. When lo and behold, that much bigger monster comes back and wreaks a little havoc in a few different places and cities. And it's up to our guys and gals to kind of figure out what the heck they're going to do to save the country post World War II, when the fighting spirit is a little bit different than it was when it was wartime. And I find that to be just, just a neat way of going about kind of a redone origin story of sorts of where this classic monster comes from.
And as we kind of discussed last week, and a wrap up to the show, I mean, you got the pass to go see this, your critical bona fides, right?
I did not.
And you didn't. Oh, so no, you paid for it twice.
I paid for it twice. Yeah, I saw it once just over Christmas break because I was a teacher of free time. It was amazing, full color, the usual thing. Then I went back to see it in the black and white. Which was, and then that was like at the 4DX over there at Regal Western with the shaky seats and the mist and the air and stuff like that, and Dramamine in my system, and that was fantastic.
I gotta ask, with the 40X, did they do anything for the heat ray scenes? Did they warm up the chair or something like that?
No, but they definitely put the flashing lights and kind of beam them across the way. It was actually a pretty well choreographed 40X thing. I've never done 40X, but like when that fighter jet moves and like that last kamikaze fight, it just sends you going for it. The rumbles and then the sea, they definitely overdid the mist. That's for sure. So I don't know how hygienical all that mist is coming out at you and sea, but you took it. That's for sure to watch the movie.
Well, all right. Thank you for summing that up and giving a little bit of your experience. I certainly didn't have that experience because I watched it on Netflix a little bit yesterday, and I finished it this morning. So
I could sit next to you on the couch and just take some Windex and hit you if you need it. I mean, yeah, just invite a friend over.
Just a spray bottle with water.
Right.
Yeah, not the Windex. That would be a little bit.
Yeah.
Bill, I want to get your thoughts as our lifelong Godzilla guy. What did you make of Godzilla Minus One? Where do you think it fits into, I guess, the pantheon? Because this is a Toho production. We get that lovely Toho logo, which is one of my favorite studio logos up at the front. But this is, it is kind of a modern retelling that's set, in the period of World War II or the end of it.
I was actually surprised that I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. I went in kind of skeptical, hearing a few things, and I came out. This is seeing it in the theater, probably in the first week that it was out, and both me, my friend Alex, who and my wife Gary, we all really, really liked it. I wouldn't give it like a full 5-star treatment, but I would give it a good 4.5 stars. Few things that I have problems with that that probably everybody had problems with, but and as far as fitting it into the rest of the thing, I don't even want to even try it. It really is just sort of this thing all on its own. I wouldn't. Yeah, if you're like somebody that's like interested in continuity or something, just forget it. It's the older films actually did have a continuity to them, but this is just what it is. It's a film that I've liked, or I should say, like I've liked the director's other movies that I've seen. I've seen probably about like half a dozen of them. And in general, I like them. There's some other things that we can get into later, but we'll just leave it right there.
Well, I want to ask you, the director is Takashi Yamazaki. Does he typically work in this genre, or is this a departure for him? Or
he's sort of all over the place. Well, you've actually seen one of his films. You saw the live-action space battleship Yamato film.
No, I think you gave that to me, and I don't think I watched it.
You
some friend
review of it, though.
Did I? Oh, wait. This was a long time ago. I think this was when I was not sleeping. So yes, you're right. You're probably definitely right.
It's let's see. He directed they're like he seems to work in a lot of sort of nostalgic genres. There's a series of 3 films that are called Always Sunset on 3rd Street. And it's basically always Sunset on 3rd Street, 1, 2, and 3. The first 2 are, I think, really good. The third one is meh. But they're very sweet, very very sentimental, and they're meant to be that. They're set in like the late 50s, early 60s. It's a Japanese family, making a go of it. Other characters come in, and there's like these sort of little soap opera dramas and things. He recently directed an anime, a CGI anime of a famous character called Lupin the Third, which was pretty good. It's not quite up to the Castle of Cagliostro standards, but it was pretty good. He's also done some other like World War II stuff. There's one called The Great War of Archimedes that is a fictionalized account of the designing of the real battleship Yamato. And then he did another one about Zero fighter pilots. So he's had a reputation also of being sort of a nationalist. The novel that the Zero fighter book was based on is apparently very nationalistic and very like apologetic for the Japanese Empire. And I think we can talk about that later, but I think some of that could be applied to this Godzilla film.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So,
okay.
that's sort of my take.
Cool. Annie, how about you?
I'm still thinking about Yamato. I actually watched Yamato for the first time. One of my buddies built this ship. He 3D printed it. It took him like maybe a year to put it all together. I really didn't expect to love -1 as much as I did. I went in, kind of keeping a baseline expectation, knowing how Godzilla has sort of campiness and cheesiness to it, and has kind of become more entertaining than it has symbolic, despite the symbolism rooted in Godzilla storytelling and kaiju storytelling, as we've seen across the MonsterVerse. I was amazed. I have never, one of my favorite movies of 2023, such a sleeper hit. And again, I'm really glad that they didn't offer this to critics, because it encouraged us to go out and actually make an effort to see it. And I can't wait to see it in black and white. Really just phenomenal storytelling. I, am still processing some of the events of it. I went back and I rewatched it prior to the live stream, just to refresh my memory. And it's, upon rewatching, it just keeps getting better. And I think, Oscar hype aside, it really is a beautiful work of art, and it really does touch on the more humanistic elements that I think Godzilla needs to be successful. And here we see that really take away from these monster fights and everything else, and how cool it can be, and kind of reflecting on why this is happening, and why we get this, and how our own actions have consequences, kind of in the same way as we got Oppenheimer, where we're like, wow, this is fantastic, this is really interesting. I am haunted by my past, and I think that's just so neat, because you can, I admire the way that entertainment has always reflected reality, and how reality continues to reflect entertainment. I think it just really comes to culmination here. I look, the team deserves all the praise, all the love. There are some things that weren't perfect, but I really have changed my perspective on Godzilla storytelling thanks to -1. And I don't think I'm able to move forward and watch Godzilla and Kong, or Godzilla and Kong 2, whatever might be coming out next, because this has elevated my expectations and has set the bar for how these stories should be continuing to be told. Yeah, we can have fun with it. Yeah, we can enjoy ourselves. Yeah, I want to see Tokyo gets destroyed, but you can't do this again. But at the same time, you need to do it again. So I think it's a pivotal stamp for the franchise that needed to be done, and is worthy of every ounce of praise.
All right. High praise indeed. Mark.
No, this was probably my favorite film of last year, not just because it was a Godzilla film, just because it was a solid film. It tied with another film that I will not say, because I know a few people didn't like that one. But it had
no, Mark. Now you got to say it. I don't.
It had a lot of pink in it, so we'll just say.
Oh,
that.
But right, you got fans here, buddy.
The pair with Oppenheimer. Yes,
I enjoy. Out of the pair, I enjoyed the Barbie end of it more than Oppenheimer, but that's a whole nother discussion. But as far as here, this was tied with probably my favorite film, and yeah, I was surprised, because I enjoyed Godzilla. I enjoyed Shin Godzilla for what they were trying to go for, what they were trying to make Godzilla scary again, which they did. There's some creepy forms of Godzilla in Shin Godzilla that just are like, oh my god, that's creepy. And there was the commentary back in there as well that kind of got, lost a little bit over the years, from my opinion anyway, with the goofier Godzilla films. But I like my goofy Godzilla films too. I think we can have a world with both Godzilla minus one and the legendary films. I think we can have both. I think the people thinking that the legendary films were going to be sequels to the Godzilla minus one film just missed the trailer completely. But I was impressed for a number of angles for Godzilla minus one, mainly because of the perspective that the story was told from. We don't get in the Western cinema the story of what happened to Japan after the war. A lot of times, we very little do we get to see the human, like, ground level effects for an extended period of time of how the war, you know, affected that side. I mean, I know we've gotten a few films, but not on this level, and you don't expect it from a Godzilla film, much more or less, you know, from what we've gotten in the past. So the fact that it's handled more seriously, the fact that Godzilla's scary in this, that atomic breath, yeah, Oppenheimer eats your heart out.
Yes.
Whole that, you know, the imagery that you have in here and the story of what they came up with Godzilla was good enough of Godzilla's origins that you buy into it. And I think you can buy into it a little bit more and be maybe a little forgiving for some of the, you know, suspension with Godzilla of just how he came about and whatnot, because the human elements are so good. The performances are so good. The characters are so interesting that the Godzilla angle of it, you're like, yeah, okay. You know, that he regenerates. Okay. You know what? I don't mind that because he's still scary. He's got a Jaws-like quality to him. And this has one of the best endings to a Godzilla film in many years. I loved how the whole finale of this film really plays out. I enjoyed it very much. You know, and yeah, it was a surprise. It was a surprise that not only was it a fun Godzilla film, an interesting one, but it was just a good film in general. And my oldest went with me, and he's like, yeah, that's cinema right there.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, you know, he's become on his own a movie consumer, and he's just like, this is cinema right here. He's like, this film is wonderful. And it is. So
very well said. Wow.
Yeah.
We talked about the original Godzilla a couple
Mhm.
months ago, Mark and Bill and I.
yes.
We did that thing where we watched Godzilla 54 or Gojira, and then the 1956 version where they basically strip mined Godzilla and inserted Raymond Burr
Yeah.
and changed a lot of stuff, including, I argue, the entire point of the movie. And that is the movie that, you know, Bill and I have known each other for almost 2 decades. We've kind of established, and, you know, I never quite understood the Godzilla thing until I watched the original Godzilla. Not so much the Raven Burr version, but the the one from 54.
Mm-hmm.
So having said that, you know, I can't give okay. I can give very select praise to a movie that I'm going to, from here on out, refer to as Godzilla C-. I thought this was one of the most disappointing experiences I've had in a long time. I thought the score was amazing. The effects are wonderful. But as far as the story, first of all, it doesn't help that I had this weird expectation because I didn't read too much into, you know, about it. I heard a lot of the meta commentary about how great it is, but I didn't want to know much about the story, except I got this weird inkling that it was a sequel of some kind because it was a period piece. You know, it's not. This is a remake, a reimagining of Godzilla, and that's fine. But if you're going to reimagine Godzilla, the story, the characters, the spirit of the film has to at least be as good as what Ishiro Honda did in 1954. And this isn't even in the same ballpark. It's not even in the same state as they said in Pulp Fiction. I think the biggest problem is our main character, our failed kamikaze pilot, who continuously runs away. He's traumatized to the point of it being like a cartoon where he continuously abdicates all of his responsibility up until the very end of the film, where when reunited with, hold on a second before I continue this.
Yeah. There you go. With no
when reunited with a girlfriend whom by all rights should have been dead.
Yeah.
The last shot we see of him is her is crying into her lap. You know, usually you have some kind of an arc during a movie. This guy was a complete flatline and a buzzkill. And I kept thinking back to those characters in 1954. I'm like, they would have executed this guy. There's no way anyone would have let this dude with PTSD on a task force to take down an existential threat. When the professor says, "Hey, I want you on my team," I was thinking, why? Why do you want this guy on your team? He has not demonstrated anything except a profound ability to fuck up at every turn.
Yeah, but for all those reasons, and because of the because he needs it, and
Look, I don't
yeah.
care if you're talking about something that can literally destroy your civilization. Your needs, no.
Yeah, but it worked out pretty
No,
good. In the
no,
end,
Don.
you know? Come on.
No, it didn't. It didn't.
Oh.
What did he do ultimately?
No, I gotta
He
side
did
with
win the
Don here
day.
because
Yeah.
Don's rooting for the pathetic man. If you don't have
I
a pathetic
am,
man,
like,
what do you have?
pathetic-
Look.
Pathetic
There's
men need chances too.
Exactly, and
Losers
that's
need
what
chances
the
too.
message of Godzilla Minus One is. That
Yeah. Survivor's guilt can be
pathetic
defeated.
men need a chance.
Yeah, survivor's guilt can be defeated. I'm with you. I in this movie I see. I'll put it this way. A year ago we were doing this with RRR. You know, where there is a passion. I said it, passion on your show. Like there's a passion in these characters that gives a darn and cares about each other, their country, their people, almost a patriotism, and not like around here patriotism. Like patriotism is different in other places, but like just that rooting and fighting spirit, that redemptive spirit, through survivor's guilt or through scrapping together and changing the ways that their country has thought about their values. Like to hear the brass at the end of the movie talk about like, we're going to do it different this time. We're going to change. We're going to evolve. We're going to do something better. We're going to give ourselves a fighting chance. The change of values that happens at a bigger community level that then filters into our failed pathetic man is the growth, is the arc, is the beauty of this movie. And I gotta stand up for the pathetic.
I might have a bit more sympathy for that position if the country that was trying to get its mojo back had not been the one that was allied with the Nazis.
Yeah,
Bill talked about nationalism. That is a through line through this movie. And, you know, it's great that there are people trying to get their lives back together.
Mhm.
But I was also thinking, yes, he's a failed kamikaze pilot. Who was he attacking?
Yeah. I think when looking at where Japan is now, and that's what I know, but looking where countries can change, histories can change, eras.
But we're talking about
evolve,
a period piece,
and it
from
was
1945 to 47.
I know. And you see how that country.
By histories can change. You can't change history.
No. But like we're friends with Japan.
We've seen it try to change within the United States.
I don't mean by change.
We can't change it historically.
No. What's done is done. But to see what the country has been able to do as immediate as those years after World War II and improve their stock, improve themselves, see the error of their ways, and evolve. And the country of Japan has done that. And maybe that is hindsight 2020, you know, rose-colored glasses for a remake period piece movie. But that was actively happening then and can happen. And I get we can play fighting sides and wave some flags here, but
But here's the thing: like if you wanted to make that kind of a statement about Japan now and have Godzilla come up out of the sea and all that stuff, and you know, Japan is a much different country now. The world is a bit much better landscape. We certainly have better relations with them than we did back in 1945. But I mean, imagine if Godzilla had been a monster that popped up and started attacking Germany in 1945, and this scrappy band of scientists who'd been studying, and they got their butts kicked, and like, we need to get the boys back together to fight to defeat this monster. I don't think there'd be as much sympathy for someone who was shell shocked because he woke up with the guilt of being a guard at Auschwitz. I mean,
but all of that starts from within. The country put itself back together before the world had to do it, and I can respect that. And history has found a way to respect that. And I can enter a movie and I can also enter a fantasy movie that borrows our history and has a big fucking lizard come out of the ocean to demonstrate some things and put a few people back in places but it's a symbol, it's an archetype. You're reading too much of a history book.
No, no. Yeah. Because
it represents nuclear warfare. Like, that's the whole
thing. But what I'm saying is, thematically, the 1954 Godzilla addressed most of these concerns in a much more adult way, with the idea of having a dramatic through line of having a tragic hero who went through an arc and came out, you know, kind of victorious at the end. A guy who did sacrifice himself at the end. I mean, Koichi, our main character, at the end, he couldn't even get that right. He parachutes out at the very end with one of the worst, you know, bits of foreshadowing.
Now you sound like a Marvel movie again here. Like, oh, no one, Peter Quill made it at the end of the Guardians 3. Like, we're gonna go here, you know.
Look, here's the thing. No, Godzilla 54 is a very, very smart movie. There are no holes in that plot or characterization. So if you're going to say, I'm going to remake that movie, this is what I'm talking about. It can't be this sloppy. I give it all the effects for all the praise for the effects and the score, and even the performances are great. I just think the characters as written are kind of garbage. But yeah, I mean, the bar is set really high. It was set 70 years ago.
Right, no,
70 years on, these people who are big fans of this, I understand that. But by the end of this film, I didn't see anything qualitatively different than what they're doing in the Legendary universe. In fact, the Legendary universe has more characters in all those movies. Even if I think they're terrible, they at least have characters who have forward momentum, who work past their issues by teaming up with each other and conquering these monsters. And you know, you can say at the end that that's someone that is worth rooting for. Koichi.
Oh man, those Warner Brothers movies are Captain Planet cartoon episodes.
Listen,
that's about as much teamwork as you get. It's
Koichi.
Skull Island was fine. That was the one with Tom Hiddleston, right? That one counts.
Counts a little. I don't know.
They're all trash. They're popcorn trash. But listen, Koichi.
It's okay, Annie. I'm with you on them.
Yeah.
So.
I just really like Tom Hiddleston. I guess this is like a person bias of mine.
Okay.
By that logic, Loki was worth watching, and we've already litigated that. There you go. But you like Tom Hiddleston.
I like him when he's given good material or solid material to act through, and he's not playing himself.
I think you've got a movie that's asking us to imagine survivor's guilt and the chances to do that versus a big fat symbol coming out of the ocean to represent another bigger thing. And can I do that and grant that even to a former villain? I sure can. We still watch movies from Germany all these years later. Like, go watch Origin with Anjani Ellis and how Germany has moved past where they're at, you know, and the sting and the scar is there, but people are allowed to grow past it. You know, and
they are, but the point is growing past it. I don't want to wait for the
sequel. You don't see that in this movie with the military brass changing their minds. These guys working the boat changing their minds.
They are not the people we're following, Don. We're following Koichi. This is his story.
There's more people in this. There's enough teamwork in this story to put the other movies to shame. I can't go with you on that. Because you see the arc with the science officer. You see the arc with the captain. You see the arc with these women.
Okay.
Like there's arcs here that you're missing.
No, I am not missing them. I am dismissing them because the focus of the film is on Koichi. Believe me, I would have been very happy if someone had that sense to shovel this guy off and say, no, you're not part of this Godzilla project. You are here for the first half of the movie. You serve your purpose, which is to remind everybody how not to be. Now we're going to go solve the problem instead of crying into our milk. Look, this guy, at the end of the film, as he goes off in his kamikaze raid, he doesn't even have the fortitude to go and talk to the anti-neighbor character about, you know, I'm going to go do this thing here. Please take care of my adoptive daughter. He sends her a letter with a bunch of money and says, hey, look, you're taking care of this kid now. Have fun explaining what happened to the parents, especially the dad, who just decided, you know, I'm just going to go and drop myself into this monster's mouth. This guy has these weird kind of like suicidal ideations that he just can't follow through with. And his through line through the movie, not his arc, but his through line is constantly chickening out. When he needs to go find the mechanic that he had beef with on the island, rightfully so, because he stood by and did nothing while Godzilla wiped out the entire contingent of mechanics on the island. What does he do? Instead of using any kind of resources to track this guy down, he finds his address and he writes him a series of taunting and threatening letters. And the guy he has the intestinal fortitude to show up to his house and try and beat the crap out of him. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? He's like, oh, I needed your help. He's like, and you wrote me a bunch of letters. Letters during a ticking time bomb situation, because the professor says, okay, we've got 10 days until Godzilla comes back, probably. Koichi doesn't go on this letter writing campaign for like 1-2 days after that. I don't know how quickly the mail moves on this island, but then they have to like rebuild the plane, all this stuff. None of it makes any damn sense. Now I'm watching this and I'm thinking back, was I taken out of the movie at any point during Godzilla 54? And the answer is no. So I'm watching something that's supposed to recapture that spirit or redo the movie. This ain't it. You could, as the music box is doing right now, just put this back on the big screen and let the audience make up their mind.
I think you're sitting in a very small minority. I think you've got,
I understand it's 98% in both audience and critic scores on Rotten Tomatoes.
I'm just checking the settings of your ejector seat for being taken out of the movie over there in the basement, and you better get some wrenches and tighten some bolts over there, buddy. Like,
well, but Don, we all know that
you get taken out of the movie very often. Yes, we do. We're on the show.
No, but just because a lot of people like something, that does elevate it to high art.
Yeah.
Bill, jump in here.
Nah, help me out here, Bill.
I don't know where to start, man. I agree with some of the things that Ian says. I agree with some of the stuff that Don says. I do think that, actually, my fellow Godzilla fan, Ed, really didn't like the main character. He felt he was a coward and never really got past that. I don't agree with that.
Well, let's pull over. Help me out here. How did he get past that, aside from flying the plane into the creature's mouth?
Because he chose to live at the end. He chose the hard thing to do, which was to survive and have to take care of a kid. He didn't know that his girlfriend was going to be alive.
Because by all rights, she should not have been.
She should be dead.
And there's a reason for that.
That is like my biggest... that's my biggest beef with the movie is really that she shows up at the end. It's this, out of nowhere. And yes, everybody is like, she should be dead. But then there is like a little weird bit in there where they focus in on her neck and you can see this growth, which is meant to look like a Godzilla fin. And it's been surmised that the reason that she's alive is that because she's got some of Godzilla's DNA and has kept her going, which would also mean that there'd be tens of thousands of other people out there.
I took that more as radiation than anything, but that's getting in Ian's camp. I can't go there.
They've also made it really clear that he's got this regenerative ability, and so. But that's all just like fan theories.
Sure.
So, and I understand. Like, well, okay. Here's something. This film was not released in Asia, other than Japan, because of the nationalistic, making you feel bad for a Japanese pilot. The thing is, like, if you see, like, there are a million Japanese films dealing with World War II and the characters, the soldiers, pilots, whatever, and they're all treated sympathetically. They're not treated as if they were Nazis or the worst enemy. They are to a lot of Americans, certainly to my father. But that approach, I did not, since I've seen a lot of these films, not necessarily like science fiction films, but a lot of military World War II films from Japan, that approach didn't surprise me. I actually was surprised at how critical of the Japanese government and the Japanese military during the war, that the film went to pretty great lengths to push. That I didn't expect. But
it's critical of the it is critical of the military, but in more of a generalistic military sense. In the same way that you could say that about a movie made in America, critical of the military-industrial complex. Nothing to do with ideology.
Apples those oranges, man. Like, that's
why not?
Different. There's a completely different. The way you can speak in that country about military and the way you can speak in this country about military are two different fruits on the tree, my friend. I'm like the way, like what Bill's talking about is I don't even want to call it progressive, but just like you said, that to be able to speak out even at all is a slightly bigger deal there than it is here, where we make Apocalypse Now. We make
Well,
fucking
no,
Pure
but
Hunter.
I'm talking about the
we-
context of the
yeah.
film. I'm not talking about the political meta nature of making the movie. I'm talking the reality of the movie. There is nothing in there about like a moral transgression that they might be trying to make up for, having perhaps sided with the wrong side of history, the losing side, teaming up with the Nazis and all that stuff, and anti-Western sentiment or whatever. The business about what you can and can't say in Japan or other countries, that affects that might affect the commentary around the film. But as far as a narrative, if I'm watching it, it needs to make sense within the reality of the film, and I don't think it quite does. It's a generic, well, the military didn't help us out. They're too big a machine, so we're going to have to bring our scrappy people that have these like leftover boats and stuff that were in dry dock, and they can show up. And we got 2 Han Solo moments at the end of this thing, which I thought were complete bullshit. I didn't know that battleships could travel that fast. I mean, there's a scene overhead where these 2 major ships are like speedboating towards each other. I'm like, no, these things are gargantuan. That they're not fueled by Federation nacelles. But that is nitpicking.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
because
is, yeah.
those are destroyers. They're amongst the smallest type of ships,
Mhm.
They can move a little better than
and
battleships.
the speed that they were going at was completely within like the limits. I do know that the military stuff in this movie was researched, and it's pretty very accurate. That plane, the Shinden, was actually built. They built like 3 of them. One of them is in the Air and Space Museum right now. And they flew, and apparently they flew pretty well. You can like ask like, well, where did they get the bombs? This kind of thing.
Sure.
Well, I didn't have a problem with that, because I imagine there'd
kind
be
of stuff,
leftover hardware laying around. I mean,
right.
that didn't have a problem with that. I did wonder, those ships, did they have these invisible shields around them that allowed Godzilla to blast a ray at them? And then there were people on the deck, and you saw them kind of like go back like this, but they weren't evaporated. There wasn't even an indication that they got like sunburn or something, because at that range, considering what Godzilla we'd seen him do in the cities, those people should have been ash.
Which
I don't know what the distance was in kilometers.
Yeah,
so
I'm not
it's,
seeing the
actually
checklist
probably-
there of where that happened in the movie, but
It was right before the cavalry showed up and they got the cables around to sink Godzilla. He blew out that giant ray, and then he was about to rear up, and that's when everybody showed up. Yeah, I'm watching it. I wanted to love this movie, guys, because I'm a recent convert to Godzilla, but I'm watching, I'm like, this is not smart. This is not good. It's it's fluffy. It looks great,
sure.
and you can get swept up in it, but I need a bit more meat in my sandwich. So we're gonna pull over a second and look at some comments. Let's see. All right, my biggest complaint is in every Godzilla movie, when Godzilla breaches the ocean's surface, he seems to stand up if he's got footing at the bottom. When he dives down, there is no landmass. Well, yeah, there is
a good
that.
job swimming in
Treading
this more
water.
than standing in this. I'll tip my hat that
He,
they
he
tried.
was standing quite a bit, and maybe he had extendo legs to go with his healing power. I don't know.
Have you seen his thighs? He's got some buoyancy and some BMI in the thighs. Like
that's been in every film, and some people have explained it away as that he basically is kicking, and since he is so large that it's able to keep him buoyant. There's been people that have explained it, because it is in every film that he's basically hovering. He can stand in deep water, and it's just that's the Godzilla trope that you just kind of roll with, because you're talking about a movie with a huge monster, and
right, but this gets back to something important, Mark. I mean, there are tropes, and you can choose to say, hey, this is in every movie, we don't have to explain it. But if you're going to make a new movie that pretends to be an evolution of the series or a continuation or reimagining, why not take the time to fix those problems? Because there are going to be people who have no idea the history of Godzilla movies, or just watching it being like, how the fuck is he standing up? This makes no sense. And then when he goes down, he's like falling into, hundreds of feet of water. I don't get it. So again, yeah, maybe it's a trope, but I don't think it holds up. This is legendary level stuff. And I don't mean in the good way.
I don't know. some tropes become the same pieces of the quilt that need to be there, or else you don't have what you're looking to adapt, a remake, or bring forth. Like if you, heaven forbid, change a lightsaber, you'll see a Star Wars fan get pissed. Like,
well, no, that's different. I mean, changing like a lightsaber to a color or something, or adding a different color, that's one thing. But I'm talking about something that fundamentally doesn't make sense. Why not take the opportunity?
Like a big lizard coming out of the ocean to kill us all in Japan. Like, you
gotta
lower the scale where this
no,
needs to
you
go,
absolutely
where,
don't.
Like, Science Boy needs to go back and sit back in the lab. He kicks. There you go. Mark told you.
It kicks when you see him standing and his legs aren't moving. He's kicking. That's what you're trying to tell me.
All of that. There's that salt shaker. There it is.
I don't know what that means.
Find some, man. Grain of salt. You get taken out of the movie more than people get out of buses, man.
No, look, again, I'm going back. I'm holding up the standard of a science fiction film that was made 70 years ago.
And
this is supposed to be
erasing that film,
right? But what I'm saying is they are trying to remake it. Godzilla for a new generation.
Sure.
Why not fix some things?
Why not have both?
Well, I mean, you can have both, but one is going to be remembered in 100 years, and the other one, most definitely will not. Especially if they're talking about sequel. This is Godzilla minus one is going to be a footnote in the history of Godzilla, especially because they're already talking about, well, what could a sequel be? A sequel be, hey, guess what? They're going to have him come out of the sea again, and he's going to fight some kind of a giant monster, and then there's going to be another one. He's going to fight another monster. It's the same thing they're doing with the Pattinson Batman series. They keep resurrecting it, throwing a new coat of grim and gritty paint on it, and saying, well, isn't this great? No, he's still fighting the Penguin. Isn't this great? No, he's fighting the Joker again. Isn't it great? Oh, wait, are you going to bring out Two-Face next? I mean, Jesus Christ. David Fowley, The Return of Annie, and I'm not there. David, that is your choice.
Open invitation, buddy. Yeah.
Yes. But we do miss you. Although, if you're watching this, David, and I assume you are, I can't imagine you missing out on all this fun. Miguel comes back and says, example, the end battle of minus one. They use a contraption to pull Godzilla into the deepest part of the ocean, then bring him up, no landmass. Honestly, they had this conversation in the movie. They're like, well, what if we just sink him? Like, well, I don't know if that's going to do anything. And the professor says, well, the pressure might crush him. And then if not, we can just have this thing underneath him that'll bring him back up to the surface, and that'll decompress him. And someone else says, well, I don't know if that's going to make sense either. And the professor's like, it's all we got. Whereas if you go back to the original film, again, you had this guy working in his basement lab coming up with this oxygen molecule destroying bomb, essentially, that they deploy, that he sacrifices himself. Yes, he goes through with it. It's a noble cause. And the reason he goes through with it is because he is convinced that he's trying to keep this from the government scientists. And he knows that if that is used, they're going to want to use it again as a weapon against, probably the United States or other Western forces, and they might torture him to get it. And so he does something that is, truly heroic, and he sacrifices himself. Again, if you haven't seen the original Godzilla, go back and check it out.
So rather than have the wonkiest science in the world from 1954, we actually want to use pressure and decompression correctly in a movie that is trying to be a little more elevated.
It's not necessarily used
2024 to 1954 every day.
It's not necessarily used.
Well, it didn't work
correctly done.
Yeah. That's
well,
why
it didn't work in
fighters and guns and shit.
Didn't work in this fictional version, right? I'm sitting there thinking,
the word fictional. Yeah.
What do you mean?
The word fictional. We've been fictional since 54. Again, get your salt shaker, man. Where did your grains of salt go? If you go back, if you look at the science in 1954, they established oxygen molecule stuff.
They established that this guy was working on this thing in the lab.
Yeah,
he discovered it by accident.
Who made Flubber in a Disney movie. Ian,
no, Don, you got to let me finish. You got to let me finish. He's working in his lab. He discovers this thing that can do something that had not been done before. What is that? That is science. And he discovers it and realizes its practical applications, and it horrifies him. And he just says, I'm not going to share this with anybody. And his girlfriend, or his would-be girlfriend, finds out, and he says, look, you're not supposed to see this. You can't tell anyone. She, in a moment of desperation, lets her military associated boyfriend or the other guy know about it, and then it becomes a whole plot point that gets back to what this war does to people. And that's important. Now, in this movie, they're talking about, I guess, established science of the physics of, dropping and lowering and pressure and stuff like that. But I didn't believe it for a second, because I'm thinking, yes, almost to Miguel's point, this creature is so big that we have no idea if plunging it to the bottom of the ocean, because apparently it came from there. It was laying down at the bottom of the ocean until it rose up.
Yeah.
So
but your better idea
even at great
is the thing
speed,
you just explained.
Even at great
Jumbo
speed.
54.
So what I'm saying is, even at great speed, which may be going a little bit faster than Godzilla is able to rise up to the surface to begin with, they're having these kind of conversations, these half conversations, and they're just kind of dismissing them. Like, well, I guess we could try it. You can try it, and it can fail, but I'm just watching it thinking, all right, this isn't going to work because they've already announced plan B. Well, if it doesn't work with sinking him, we can just have him be buoyant. And I'm thinking, as an audience member, okay, so this is a 20-minute sequence I'm about to watch in which they fail and I have to go to plan B, right? There's no having to be inventive and quick on their feet, because at that point I know plan B is going to fail. They're going to have the cavalry, and then they're going to have the kamikaze pilot come in and do his thing. It was a surprise that he parachuted out, but given everything I knew about his character leading up to this point, I shouldn't have been surprised in the first place. So the first hour of Godzilla Minus One, I think, is full of surprises and story and intrigue. And the last hour is every movie of its kind that I've seen up to this point. So I'm thinking, why is this supposed to be the successor to Godzilla?
I can't
see, and I get where I get your opinion where you're coming from, Ian. And I guess when I went into it, I didn't even think of the first one at all. I took it by itself, and that's how I've watched every Godzilla. Even though I know some of them have continuity, I take each one separately and I look at the movie on its own merits. And for me,
as did I.
For me, well, but you're here discussing how you're comparing about how it is, dumber than the first one. How it's not.
I want to correct you, Mark, because no one watches movies in a vacuum. We are always evaluating movies based on other movies. That's what we do. We are film critics and we are film appreciators. I can take a film on its own merits. When those merits fall short, then I'm naturally inclined to say, well, this is a remake of Godzilla. How does this stack up to Godzilla? The answer is it doesn't. That is taking a film on its own merits and understanding what it is.
You're taking away from the merit because you're comparing it to something that pre-exists.
The C word.
No, but Annie, it is impossible. It is impossible to be a film critic and not do that.
Horseshit. I do it twice a week. I never compare other movies in my reviews. Horseshit.
You know what? I like to
it can be done. Write smarter, write faster, and leave the other movie alone.
You have to acknowledge the source material in order for there to be some
source material is one thing, but not
it's one thing, but you can't rely on it to retell a story because we've seen this in other franchises. We've seen Marvel burn itself out. We've seen DC burn itself out. Disney's burning itself out because we're getting Inside Out 2 and Moana live action now instead of them doing something original where we have the source material where they can build off of it. Godzilla Minus One takes the source material and it honors it in a way that doesn't really make things about Godzilla anymore. It makes it about the people. And we're forced to carry that. We're forced to carry the grief. We have to be there in the moment with them, or we're not going to understand how personal the franchise can be for some. I'm not saying every single Godzilla movie is going to be personal. I'm not going to say that they're all going to be deep. This one has its flaws, and we've discussed the flaws. At the same time, if you go through it and you go, wow, this isn't like the original Godzilla, it's not going to be a shot. And even if they do a shot-for-shot remake of the original, you're going to go in and say this is the original remake.
Right.
They didn't do anything.
Right. And that's fine. My point, I think, ultimately would be it's okay to leave it alone.
But see, and I didn't even take this. The thing is, I didn't take this as a remake because if you look at Shin Godzilla did the exact same thing. It started from scratch. Shin Godzilla is its own story as well. Whether you like it or not, it was giving an alternative to using this character. And here in Godzilla Minus One, I took it as the same. I didn't take this as a remake. I just took this as, say you have a comic, you have 3 different titles with 3 different Wonder Womans or 3 different Deadpools or 3 different Wolverines or X-Men. And while the characters may have similar abilities, each one of them is handled in a different way in that storyline. Granted, multiverse story, but I'm just using it as a comparison where you've taken characters and you're taking familiar situations, but you're putting a different spin on them, good or bad. And I get your perspective on this, Ian. I do. I guess for me personally, and I think for a lot of people, it's considering what we've been getting for your kaiju films up until now. I think it surprised people that, as you said, the first hour is a character piece involving exploring this flawed character who just can't seem to either get a break or he can't come up and actually make a stand or whatnot. He's just too suffering from PTSD, and everybody else around him is trying to get on with their lives or trying to do it. His boat crew, I think, as well, are interesting characters, and why, yes, we are following the main character. We do get these other ancillary characters who give different perspectives and represent different things. You have the young kid in here who's sitting there and very anxious and going, man, I wish I was in the war. And you had everybody in the room going, no, you don't, Chief.
Those were a great couple of exchanges.
And then there's also the idea of, hey, the government's not going to help us. We've got this big threat, whatever it is, coming, and we have to do it ourselves because the government won't help us, which is something that you haven't quite seen in a Godzilla film before. Whether or not you like it within the context and the nationalism message, it was presenting, there are some ideas in this film that are things that we had not seen before in a Godzilla film. Not necessarily with the big guy himself, though. You do have the regenerative part, which has kind of been talked about before, depending on who, what you look at, which film. But and again, I understand where you're coming from, Ian, with it, but I think that's what the appeal is for a lot of people, was that it was a surprise. If you especially look at the recent body of work from Godzilla, not necessarily the classic work, because if we go back there, I'm going to say, you know what? No horror film lives up to Psycho. So, even if it took me out of it. So, and that's however you want to look at a film, that's fine. But I guess for a lot of people, it's just, they're looking at it as, this is something that was trying to do at least something different in its storytelling, maybe not necessarily with the characteristics of Godzilla and its approach. And does it stumble along the way? Yes. I didn't like the angle of the seeing the blob at the end for the regenerative part, for leaving it open for a sequel. I thought that was kind of taking away from everything else that you had done. Go ahead, Bill. Sorry.
That also I didn't like, but that is actually a requirement from Toho, that every Godzilla film has to end with the possibility of him coming back. Another requirement is you are not allowed to show Godzilla eating people. So you see on Odo Island, a
lot of flinging.
He grabs them and throws them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I find that expanding blob at the end I thought was stupid, but apparently we're not allowed to have a movie that doesn't end with it.
Wow, Hollywood doesn't have that mandate, but they just do it naturally. So and also with some of the other aspects with Godzilla, I do get it, but I guess for me it hit differently. And going into it, and maybe that was part of the expectation, is seeing it later after everybody's hyped it, or going into it going, what am I getting? May also affect your viewing, in all honesty. It has for me, for some.
Yeah.
I will to this day go, I'm glad people love La La Land, but I outside of a couple of the opening musical segments, I thought it was just mediocre, but other people have praised it as a wonderful musical, and that's, I think also that can help with the perspective of going in fresh versus going in after it's been talked about for a while. So that gives you some extra food for thought, either consciously or subconsciously. End of the day, you like what you like, you don't like what you don't like. But I think it just, from those of us who really enjoyed it, I think that's where we're coming from, is like the final battle too, with, you know, them with the destroyers and Godzilla and him running into the mouth. Yeah, him popping out actually was him almost being more brave than him dying with it, because him dying would be easy because he's been suffering for so long. It's like someone not being able to handle their inner demons, and they end up committing suicide, because a lot of people will say, oh, well, they took the easy way out rather than trying to get help or handle it. You know, and yeah, it is frustrating to watch your main character do that, but he does have other characters around him who I also found fascinating. I love the guy who's the old crotchety boat captain who spoke out about the government in front of two ex-soldier guys. You know, I mean, as you said, that's kind of something different you haven't seen in westerns, Western civilized films. Bill, you mentioned it, that you've seen many of the World War II films involving the treatment of Japan soldiers in that from Japan, but in Western cinema, for some of us who only have consumed mostly that, this is a different thing that many have seen as well. You know, whether or not it was a great approach to it, you know, again, there are flaws in any film, but I'm just laying the work that I can see where you're coming from, Ian, but also the passion that a lot of people have for this film, I think, is because of those aspects. So, yeah, go ahead, Bill. Sorry.
To offer a completely different opinion of this film, I have a friend his name is Oki. He's lives in Los Angeles, but he's from Japan. He used to he's worked with a lot of the old school Toho model guys from the 60s and 50s and 70s, and he hated this film. And I asked, like, well, why? And he said that he felt it was a terrible insult to the Japanese people after World War II. He thought it was cruel that after all the suffering that the people of Japan went through, that this filmmaker would then just throw the Godzilla at them. He explained that actually his grandfather was meant to be a kamikaze, and so this affected him in a really personal way.
Sure.
In a way that I can't actually understand. From a gut point of view, I mean, I can kind of intellectually think and understand it, but his reaction, which is unique amongst anybody that I've seen, it really surprised me, but I think it was genuine, and I think he was, so I don't know. I asked him then, like, well, have you spoken to other people in Japan about this? And he said, yeah, kind of people will agree with me, but sort of off the record, as it were. He felt that most of the other Japanese were very, very enthusiastic about it, but he felt that was sort of more for show, and that deep down they also felt that it was very, very cruel to the survivors of the war. So I read that like the night after I saw the movie, and it was just completely blown away, because I didn't see, it's like I didn't see the same film, but he's approaching it from 180 degrees from my background and his background.
When you were talking, Mark, and thanks for sharing that, Bill. I mean, that's one of the kind of impossible aspects to approach this movie. Having a deep, decades-long cultural perspective versus people who are not of that culture talking on a podcast. It is cool to hear that. But Mark, when you were talking about the whole kamikaze thing, it occurs to me that this is one of the reasons that I was so bothered by Koichi parachuting out at the end. I can understand the perspective of, like, he decided to live, but honestly, he's been deciding to live throughout the entire film. That was the inciting incident of the movie, was him chickening out of being a kamikaze pilot. Now, if there had been some kind of a revelatory moment, really, of him finding a lust for life or coming to grips with his decision, I can understand him wanting to live at the end. But I think to complete that arc, it would have been more interesting if he had decided, okay, now I've discovered what a true enemy looks like. It wasn't the United States, you know, or whatever. It's this thing that's going to destroy, that's really going to destroy my people. Now, you'd have to go back and rework that into a script that makes sense, because what I certainly said probably certainly does it. I'm just, you know, it's just coming up out of my mind, my id. But I think he ends up in the exact same place at the end, in a way, as he does at the beginning. I also had a problem with the way that this movie treats time and the way time affects the relationships, because we go from 45 to 46 to 47. Now, in the course of that, when Koichi first meets, was it Noriko? She's, you know, on the street, she's running, people are yelling, "Stop, thief!" And she's running with an infant in her arms, and she runs into Koichi and hands him the baby. And he's just kind of like, and then other people kind of run past. And later he's just kind of sitting there rocking the baby, and she kind of motions to him and says, like, you know, "I thought you were never going to move." And they kind of take on this, the adoptive role of this, taking care of this kid. We don't know where that kid came from. Was she kidnapped? That's the vibe I got. And so I'm wondering,
they explained it in there.
Yes, they did.
She actually mentions what happened with the baby.
Well,
Yes, she
explain
took
that
it because
I missed it.
Yeah, she
No way.
She don't. Well, no.
It gets you my needle from a sewing.
No,
kit for more
she
whole
does
theory.
make a mention. It's very brief, but she makes a mention in there because of how she got into the situation, and that she ended up taking the baby because of the parents dying.
Yes.
I believe it was after an attack. I forgot, it was a bombing. I think it was one of the final bombings or whatnot. She ended up taking the baby. And when they say "stop thief," and I get what you're saying, I think you needed a King Kong, she's grabbing an apple scene in there. I don't think she was actually stealing the baby, because if she was stealing the baby and they were running after her, they would have stopped and grabbed the baby. I think she stole something else while she had the baby, and she gave it to him while she could make the run. You don't have that. I totally get that, what you're saying, from the perspective, because at first I kind of thought that, but later on she talks about how she ended up getting the baby because of what happened with the parents. She knew the parents. It's been, I didn't rewatch the film, I'm sorry, before this. Has just been busy, but there is a statement in there of where the baby came from, but it's very brief in there. She did not steal the baby, but I totally get it, because that was my implication when I first heard it, is that why'd she take the baby? But then thinking back at it, if she took the baby and the people chasing after her, if she took it, they would have said, "Oh, hey, that's our baby." And, you know, because they do pass him. So I think she stole something else for the baby. It is not
rice and food.
It is not presented the best, but I think that's what was going on with that. But they do explain that part. So,
okay. And thanks for clearing that up, because I totally missed that. But as
it's very brief. It's very brief though, and especially with subtitles, the subtitles do fly by fairly quickly. Even when we were watching it in the theater, I caught some dialogue the first time that I missed when I was seeing it in the theater. When I saw it the second time, because I missed some dialogue, because the subtitling did come by fairly quick. So if you're not really a quick reader, you know, which I'm not, because words burn. You know, so
occupational hazard over here. Yeah, read very fast.
No, and that's good. But getting back to it, because that was just kind of my setup. But
no,
the relationship with this, the relationship with this found family. No, I'm glad you cleared that up, because it was kind of bugging me. But the Koichi, understand he's going through a lot of, you know, mental stuff, survivor's guilt or whatever. But as this movie jumps forward in time, the little girl is growing up, and Noriko is, you know, growing up as well. At one point, she decides, you know, she gets a job. It's very clear when they have a meeting of the kind of the boat crew over at their house, and it turns out that they're not married. You know, kind of gets some guff from his friends because they're, you know, not married and the baby's not really theirs, and he's kind of like shrugging it off. And the one guy gets up, I can't remember if it was the captain, he kind of gets up in his face. You're like, what the hell is the matter with you? And I'm thinking, I've been wanting the same thing for the last half hour. But there is a lack of paternal care and instinct in this film. I understand it's not his baby, it's not really his wife, but they are living together in this unit, and they're on some level trying to make it work. But because we keep jumping forward in the years and glossing over that, I can't really see any connection that he has, you know, with Noriko or with the baby. So when he decides to leave her with the aunt character at the end of the film, like, yeah, that checks out. I didn't feel anything except, you know, the baby is probably better off without that guy, but also, you know, what a tragic circumstance, because that guy has been ostensibly raising her for, you know, 2-3 years at this point. It was a disconnect. We've been talking about the human characters in this movie, and yeah, they are human characters, but the ones that we're focusing on kind of suck as people.
and you know what,
I can't agree with you, man. I mean, it's
no, I get what you're saying on it and describing it, and I think again this may fall into the could have used maybe a little bit more for you. And it, again, I could be making lakes out of puddles and filling in blanks myself with my vivid imagination, but the way I took it with it is that part of the reason they didn't get married, and he tried to cut himself off from everyone, is because he was still suffering from that survivor's guilt.
Yep.
And from the fact he wasn't a kamikaze the whole time. So even though they'd been living together for 3 years and they grew up with the kid sees him as a daddy because that's just naturally, he's the male figure around. And you know, who is it? The girl, the woman, Kamiko, she was trying to make it work. He would not let her in. And while it's handled clumsily, I think that's the point of him at the end finally embracing her. He doesn't embrace her for most of the film. Every time she tries, he pushes away. He might start giving and then he pushes away because he doesn't feel he is worthy of that. He doesn't let himself get that because he is plagued with this memory of all of the stuff he didn't act upon.
Right.
Mark, I understand.
But then you got to calculate the loss of Kamiko, where that's going to take his already wrecked mind and make it worse, to the point where maybe a guy has a realization that I'm not the best for this person, and he will leave a letter with a neighbor with some money, and that's the best he can do. And then you get to a better late than never aspect to a lot of his arc. It's not
well. I understand what you guys are saying. No, I get it. I just don't accept it. And the reason is what we're talking. No, what we're talking about. What we are talking about is time. 1945, 46, 47. That's 3 years. That is 3 years of people living together, trying to build some semblance of a family. I need more than, he was just still pushing them away after 3 years. You know, it's unclear that she has any kind of love for him or connection. She has kind of a caring relationship towards the kid, but why not leave? She came from the street. She could go back. It's clear that she is able to find work for herself. So this relationship just made no sense to me, except for the fact that the movie needed her to be on a train that got, half eaten by Godzilla. Somehow Koichi is right there, in the middle of downtown, right where the train happens to get thrown, and she stumbles out of the wreckage. She's like, "Oh, come with me." I'm like, "Oh, you've got suddenly the Bruce Wayne teleporting powers from The Dark Knight Rises. This is great. I love it. Science."
I was going to attempt to do some whole, like, what are men like in 1946 in Japan, pre, women's lib, pre everything in the whole wide world about the
the women we do see in this movie, the women we see in this movie are not what you would call traditional, traditional women. We see the aunt character and and Noriko, right?
In all honesty, and again, this is my vivid imagination, maybe getting the better of me, but I almost took as her getting her job as her making one step away of possibly leaving, because she was, up until that point, they were living off of his boat money and that to survive. And here she had an opportunity to be independent and start, because she's like, okay, it's been 3 years. You got issues. I've got a kid that I've grown to really enjoy or at least care for more so than you. And she's like, so I'm going to get a job because I'm, there's an opportunity. And you get I always got the impression that she was almost looking for giving herself an opportunity for an out, because she was getting, but she is a very sympathetic character. She still wants to help our main character because she can tell he has problems, but at the same time, she's like, the kid's getting older now, more impressionable, and this guy just ain't having it. And, she is creating a situation that would help her get out of her current situation, finally saying, if you're not going to move on anything, I'm going to move myself. And while it's not handled well in the movie, again, that's maybe just me building off.
No,
I think
Mark, you're absolutely right. And
know.
I think that story needed to be in this movie. Perhaps her leaving with the little girl is the thing that, helps him realize,
sure,
you do have something to contribute, but you're not. And so we got to yank this rug. I'm going to give you a reason to live. But all the potential in terms of what's going on with this family dynamic, it's skipped over when we go to these title cards. Hey, now it's 1946. And they're still having the same problems they were having a year and a half ago. Hey, it's 1947. And they're still having the same problems as when they first met. Like, I get it, but I have not seen relationships that are this stagnant that, and I certainly don't know everybody in the world. I don't know everybody in different countries.
I'm glad you said that.
But I do know that life is complicated and messy and causes, there are a lot of agents, catalysts, you might say, for change. And I don't believe that anybody stays this static for that long.
And you know what? And him running across her in the big crowd as she got off the train. Yeah, that one was a stretch for even me. But then again, I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying that it was something that didn't take away from it, is the fact that we've seen that way too many times of coincidence of people end up showing up. Not saying it's a smart move. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying, I think as a movie audience, you kind of just like, you're like, okay. And that took away a little bit for me as well, for it of
kind of like how Han Solo has impeccable timing to tag Darth Vader at the end of the first movie. Come on, we can do this all day with 1,000 other cases.
No, that last bit totally works.
No, not so much with Han Solo, but
I'm saying the Han Solo bit totally works.
No, it does. No,
flies back and he's over. You can see the trench and he takes the shot. No one knew.
And in all honesty, in her coming back, while I was happy to see the character come back, I wish they hadn't made that choice either. In all honesty, I wish it would have been him choosing to live by ejecting and then going back and taking care of the kid, realizing he's got to man up and be a father to this kid because that's all the kid has. And hey, I do wish they would have kind of took that different angle. While the ending they had, it didn't ruin the movie for me at all. I do wish they would have done that, but again, it also makes sense with the whole we need a sequel thing that he's the Toho rules. I kind of see why they played it, but I would have liked it to see just him at the end going back, taking the kid back, saying, hey, I'm going to raise him, and going to the and closing door on
I agree, Mark. I would have been a lot more, I think, still harsh on this movie, but I think I would have been more satisfied with the ending had he done the ejection and then gone without the safety net of, once again, he's got all these people around him to pick up the pieces of him constantly fucking up in his life. Well, that if Noriko had been dead, as again she should have been, and he had to take care of this girl, I would have wondered about, that could have been an entire mini series about him growing up enough, raising, one kaiju and a little lady. I don't know. But I would have liked to have seen that story. But again, he's got this out because I'm glad that they had the Godzilla eggs popping up in the water at the end, because otherwise the final shot of this movie would have been, again, Koichi, the quote unquote hero of our film, crying into the lap of his girlfriend. And I'm like, no, there's nothing noble or heroic about that. You can have your therapist moment on the couch, but not in my Godzilla movie.
You are
all right. We're gonna go on.
Ian, man. Oof. Okay,
there you go. Totally. Yep. I will take that mantle.
I know.
All right. Ian has standards. Thank you, Deanne. That might literally be the nicest thing you've ever said to me, and I appreciate it. Miguel, I'm upset that in the years, many of these movies that was not addressed. I think he's talking about the leg standing up in water thing, because I'm way behind on comments. I apologize, everybody. Let's see. Petty. Hi, boys and princess. Thank you, Petty. I haven't been called a princess yet.
I do know a good hairdresser.
Mark, I guess Don recommended a hairdresser.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I know a German guy named Schick and a French guy named Gillette, and they're both outstanding gentlemen.
Let's see. Miguel says, in the end, the regeneration rate of Godzilla will put the sequel a month after -1 at the latest. There you go.
Yeah.
Armand White has been rubbing off on Ian, and I like it. There you go. I'll take that as a positive. Marvel has been living off on tabula rasa film appreciators like Don. Thank God people are coming to their senses and it's dying.
Yeah.
Well,
not me. Yeah.
Let's see. Petty again. Today, Don had tiger steak for breakfast. It's indomitable. How is he making him disown Ian? How is he making him disown Ian?
Yeah. I'm with you, Petty.
No one's disowning me.
I like tiger steak. What can I say?
To DN again, I don't know how far back this goes, but I bet people in Japan hated the movie. Bill gave us a little bit of color on that. Nobody really loves La La Land. Okay, DN, this is where we're going to war. I love La La Land.
I do too.
I really do. Oh my gosh, Don, high five.
I do too. High five.
There you go. All right.
Okay.
Truce. If you want a good movie making a social comment on post-war Japan, watch any Ozu movie. Otherwise, make an entertaining movie and shut up. Wow. Okay, DN coming with the harshness. Digging it. All right. And Petty with a paragraph. Annie is very quiet, and since I didn't see the movie, I'm going to ask about another topic. What is your opinion about the fact there are now female Adeptus Custodes? I don't know where.
So this is a Warhammer question. This is about Warhammer.
All right. Podcast. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
This is not about Godzilla whatsoever. This is Warhammer 40K.
Go Petty.
Yeah.
Where does that leave the Sisters of Battle?
Yeah,
you got to answer this one.
I think it's funny to listen to two grown men fight over Godzilla.
You're welcome.
That's what Godzilla is all about at the end of the day. Two grown. I've been
no, let's pull over because I've heard this argument. No offense, Annie. But I've heard this argument, and it's sort of a cheap shot because we're not really talking about Godzilla. We're talking about
the socio-political aspects.
Not even that, but we're talking about art and film criticism and things like that. So, yes, it's two guys fighting over something that started off as a giant guy in a rubber costume stomping over models, but we're talking about the evolution of cinema and storytelling. And yes, I just wanted to clear that up for anybody out there.
So on the change of the 40K lore, I think it's kind of neat. I do think that Warhammer is becoming more inclusive. It is really tough to get into, and it's an expensive hobby. My friends are very much into Warhammer, and I have not committed to the bit fully. I'm kind of on the outskirts of the Warhammer fandom. I'm familiar with it to the extent where I can talk about it in passing and go, okay, I know what the Space Marines are, I know what the Space Wolves are, blah, blah, blah. But I haven't gotten too into it to the point where I can speak to how the lore may shift in gameplay moving forward. I think it's neat. I don't think that gender and gender bias need to play a big role in everything. At the same time, I think that making room for diversity in Warhammer is really neat because it's so rooted in diversity itself, and it's pulled from different aspects of pop culture and from fantasy that it's nice to further that one step more. I'm not really sure what I have to say about this as just the battle, just because I'm not immersed in this fandom enough to speak and give you a full opinion, but I will ask my Warhammer buddies and see what which is something I never thought I would say.
He's in the Rolodex over there.
You know what? Growing up, my family used to watch Big Bang Theory, and they used to mock me. They used to make me sit down and watch it with them because they would talk about like Doctor Who and Marvel or whatever. And they go, "Do you know those guys?" And I would leave. I get mad and I'd leave. I'd go hide and whatever. I'd pout because I'm not like those guys. And looking back at it now, it's so bad because these are like, that's it. This is like, it's funny because like I am hanging out with the Big Bang Theory guys.
Yeah.
But instead of Star Trek or whatever, it's Star Trek that they like, right? It's anything else, Star Trek included. But No, I think we're teetering at the point as a group where we're into Warhammer, but we're not into Warhammer. Once Henry Cavill's adaptation rolls around, I am ready to go on. I am so ready. I am very much prepared once that Amazon Prime gets it started and they start releasing set, and then I can get start building my own armor or whatever it might be. Then I go in.
I want to see Annie. I want to see Annie cosplay some Warhammer armor.
I thought about it.
There we go.
I gotta start looking into this Warhammer stuff because that sounds. I don't know what you're talking about.
Aesthetically,
it is cool.
It's really aesthetically interesting.
Yeah.
It's like D&D where you sit down for hours at a time. So if that's your thing, if you love sitting with a bunch of nerds.
Well, I do. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing right now.
That's what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm very familiar with the concept of it, and I know it in passing. I just wish I could give you a better answer.
And I think just final. I think that brings up a good point with Warhammer and just about anything we're seeing now with IPs, and especially with who would have thought, whether or not you enjoyed this film or hated it, we'd still be talking about a Godzilla film 70 years. Mm-hmm. For its 70th anniversary, it was released. And we have some other IPs as well out there that have very long running stands that are very over here from where they started in variations. And, again, different strokes for different folks, whether or not you like it. The good thing that you have with all of that is that other stuff does still exist.
That's right.
So if you don't like the new stuff, perfectly understandable. It didn't hit with you. You hate it. Ian, if he really wants to wash the Godzilla -1 out of his mouth or out of his brain, he can go back to Godzilla 54 watch and go, see, now this is my Godzilla. And there's nothing absolutely wrong with that. If you want to see a fandom that does this worse than Star Wars, because Star Wars is all up in arms about, I haven't even watched The Acolyte, but it's just my feed's exploding with hate right now.
Yeah.
You look at Doctor Who fans. If you want to look at the cycle of hate, love and hate for the exact same property with just different iterations, Doctor Who fans are definitely at the top, and that's another long-running series. And I think that's where we run into is you have these series that run long enough that either what they're trying to create now is completely different, and therefore it may turn off many fans to it, or they might present something new to it. But it is hard that going that long, providing something new before you start stepping on things that made everybody or a lot of people fall in love with it, good or bad. You're just running into that, and I don't think we necessarily fault anybody for having the opinion they have for the property they have. Again, you like what you like, but I think that's part of the thing too, is we're talking about a property that's based off of a commentary about the effects of the dropping of the first atomic bomb on a society, something that no one had ever seen before, and the impact of that have, and that metaphor and that analogy and all of that in there, 70 years separated from that. It's I'm just saying that the storytelling is going to change for the good or bad.
Right.
And I guess that's just my own opinion with things. And, I felt the same way with the Ghostbusters 2016 that came out and many other things. I liked them both. If people hated the 2016 one, that's fine. I said, that's fine. You can go on your shelf. You can grab the Ghostbusters that you like, and it still watches it. And it's still the same movie. Ghostbusters 2016 hasn't come over, ghost trapped your version of Ghostbusters and made this the only one. This isn't the only Godzilla out there. This isn't the only form of Godzilla. And this isn't going to be the only Godzilla we get, going forward, because this made money, 15 mil, and it made the top box office in Japan.
It was the second highest grossing movie in Japan that year, behind Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
Mark, going off of something that you just said about Doctor Who too, I'm thinking there's kind of a parallel here in an unsuspecting way between Godzilla and the Doctor Who universe. is that a lot of their lore is based around the fallout, around military stances, dictatorships, etc. Like, look, the Cybermen, the Daleks are based off of the Third Reich, compared to, the conversation we were just having a little bit ago about the kamikaze fighters and all of that. You're seeing it's a straight line if you're to draw parallels, maybe different time periods, or similar time periods in a way, right? So you're able to draw those connections. And I think that we come down to major criticisms when we do like to throw out the D word, diversity. And Doctor Who is still struggling in a way to be as diverse as it wants to. Like, look at Ncuti Gatwa's doing good. I really enjoy their run so far. I think they're very entertaining. I think they're lighthearted. I think they're fun. But because of some of the more modern day choices that they've chosen to do with the season, like introducing Jinx Monsoon or more LGBTQIA elements, that might not resonate with everyone who is an audience, but still connect to modern day talking points and themes, there is going to be that automatic backlash. Look at the Acolyte. I think it's fine. I think it's noise. I think it's a way for Lucasfilm to make money. If they really wanted to tell a diverse story, they would put a little more effort into it and just instead of hiring diverse casts who look and sound diverse. But that's a different conversation.
Right.
At the same time, that's not killing the story. You can have your diversity, you can have your great storytelling, but you need to have the artistic vision to push it along. Once you lose that, and once you rely 100% on one element, you're losing your entire production. And I think with you, Ian, really harping on this one loserly guy that we have at the forefront, yeah, that's one aspect of it. But when you look at Godzilla Minus One as a whole, okay, and going back to why we're here tonight, it is an Oscar. I think it's the first Godzilla movie to win an Oscar.
Completely.
That in itself is such an accomplishment, and you can nitpick all day long, and we've nitpicked for the last hour and a half. But at the same time, you could dislike something so much. You could go back and watch the original. We could also celebrate the achievements of what modern day storytelling and modern day art is telling us, even if it's not modern day art that feels like art to you. It's And I had one of my writers, she's Chinese American. She, not speaking from a Japanese person's perspective, but someone who is Asian and has Asian experience and Asian American experience. She didn't care for Oppenheimer, and she loved Godzilla Minus One.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, I don't, I don't know. I guess I don't know this person. You said they've got a certain heritage. I don't know exactly how that links up to that, but I mean, it's fine. But I would say, as far as the achievement, yes, and I recognize the great achievement it was for this kind of scrappy little, comparatively modestly budgeted, compared to what else is out there. This is a low budget movie, and this team who really cared about making a visually impressive story. They won the Oscar. They impressed everybody. They took in all the money, and I think that's great. I celebrate that. I want to watch a documentary about how they pulled that off.
Yeah, I would love that.
More than I ever want to watch or think about
stuff on YouTube
they actually made. Yeah,
there's a few production little diary things.
No, I'm not saying there's not. I'm just saying that after having watched the movie, I'm more interested in the story surrounding it and what they actually came out with.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna let's
roll
see
call here.
All right, we're gonna go. We got a few comments. We're gonna breeze through them. Goes, whoa, boy! As Annie mentioned, there's some stuff that's an entirely different show. Petty laughs. I think because we brought up the Warhammer thing and got off into this nice tangent. But if nothing else, that got me into thinking, what is Warhammer all about? Deanne is back. Oh God, diversity.
Ooh,
Eddie says, thanks, Annie. Is good listen. Another bell about the topic. And PD Henry is a god.
Of something.
I agree. I wish, I hope Henry Cavill finally gets that thing that makes him not just, because he keeps getting attached to these misfit property.
So much.
This is the thing, I think.
This is his thing.
Yeah,
I know. He also loved The Witcher, and that fell apart.
Yeah. But because they didn't want to adhere to what The Witcher was.
Right, I understand.
This is
but
his
I'm saying
thing. I think he's a producer on it. So he's
Right, but
producing it.
he keeps getting attached to these things that he is very passionate about because he is like one of those geeks that's cut like a Greek god. He's really into these things. It's just that, look at the Snyderverse
That's just
stuff.
my
You look at
dating history, Ian.
I'm just saying, you
grab
look
the
at
mythology.
Snyderverse,
Love it.
you look at Snyderverse, you look at The Witcher, you look at The Man from U.N.C.L.E., all these like would be non-starter franchises that you can tell he was really good in and really kind of cared about. Mission Impossible is that's wildly successful on his own. My point about Henry Cavill is he gets involved in these things that are really cool and he really cares about, but they just kind of fizzle or people don't respond the way that they kind of do. And I just hope that he becomes that superstar because I think he's really cool.
Smidge of that is on Henry being as wooden as the desk I'm sitting at, but that's okay.
Did you watch The Man from U.N.C.L.E.?
I did, and I missed.
I'll tell you, there was something wooden when I was watching The
Yeah.
Witcher, and he was in that bath scene. There was something
There
wooden
you
going
go.
on.
Yeah.
So,
Hey,
anyway,
hey.
Back up off that one. Let's see.
Boom.
Miguel, I'll make this easy and rate it for everyone here. Godzilla Minus One is better than Godzilla 98.
That's
In
true.
that, we are all in complete agreement.
I don't know. Bill gave a shoulder shrug over there. You like that 98 one, Bill?
Oh God.
They still got the music back. Deanne is back. He's on a roll. Diversity has killed off more art than anything. Ask Kathleen Kennedy. Hold on. I got some thoughts on this that I'm going to share in a second. You Like What You Like also gave us A Fall of a Civilization. Which one?
Disagree,
and Oscar means as much as fucking processed meat shaped like an appendage. I will agree with
which
you.
appendage.
Here's the thing.
I'm
going to piss off. I'm going to piss off DN with this. I'm also going to piss off Miguel because I watched The Acolyte episodes 1, 2, and 3, and I thought the first couple episodes of The Acolyte were not good. You want to talk about plot holes galore and just stuff that doesn't even make narrative sense. Fine. Episode 3, I've been hearing the hype about how this is going to be the Star Wars franchise killer. It's terrible. It's lame. It's woke. All that other stuff. I watched it today, and I really liked it.
Is this the Manny Jacinto episode?
I know.
Yeah.
Give it time, buddy.
It's the latest one that they changed with
Wednesday.
something with the Force.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, we're talking spoilers, but I don't want to.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil anything.
It's the origin of what's going on.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
What's fascinating to me, and we're not going to get into this because we're running late. As we are, it's like this is becoming the 2-hour podcast. And I got to.
We've also burned Star Wars shows on the show badly.
Well, there's a reason I'm not covering Star Wars anymore because it's become increasingly uniformly terrible over the years. So I refuse to cover it anymore. But I am watching The Acolyte, and I will just say a lot of the commentary about episode 3. I think it is correct in that the things people are saying are actually in it. But I think what a lot of people are missing is the perspective from which they're being approached. People are saying, well, it's it's a bunch of like space witches who are saying the Force is now a thread and all this other stuff. I'm like, yes, they are saying that. However, there's no indication in the show that the show is on the side of these characters or these characters are correct. And we are 3 episodes into a 6 or 8 episode series. So to be proclaiming that everybody knows where this is going, I think is very premature and irresponsible and keeping people away from watching something and evaluating on its own merits, a word we're throwing around here a lot lately or tonight, and for themselves, which I think is the most important. Now, okay, here we go, Miguel. The Acolyte, if you watch it with the volume off, it changes everything. That's very true. Okay, well, thank you all for your patience, for your discussion. This has been very nice and passionate. I think as passionate as the people who made Godzilla Minus One, even if I don't necessarily agree with the results of that passion. I am in the minority here. Again, this is movie reviews from the last guy anyone asks, and that is certainly me. But yes, I want to thank once again Bill Goodmanson, the resin chef himself, Bill's Kitchen, Don Shanahan of Film Obsessive, Every Movie Has a Lesson, and the Cinephile Hissy Fit podcast, Annie Banks of the Mary Sue, and We Got This Covered. Thank you. And Mark the Movie Man Krawcheck. I want to say I really have enjoyed talking about the Godzilla movies, in the last couple of months because it has been a big discovery for me. Even this one, I didn't like it, but now I understand why I don't like it and why I can compare it to the original Godzilla and the legendary stuff and what they're doing here, and find that they're completely different approaches to, the same kind of material. And I think what we're talking about, art and how everything is structured, that's what it's all about. It's a beautiful thing. Deanne says, bring David back. Look, this is the second time tonight. David had the invitation. Hey. He's probably busy or watching this, popping, stuffing popcorn in his mouth. This is delicious. I'm glad I'm not there. Petty coming in. Will there be live stream analyzing the Acolyte episodes like you did with Boba Fett? No, I'm done with Star Wars. My wife, when I said I was going to watch the Acolyte, she's like, I thought you were done with Star Wars. And I said, I am. I'm done talking about Star Wars. I didn't watch any of Ahsoka because, why? But I've heard so much about the Acolyte that I'm like, I can't stay away because this is the death of Star Wars. This is the nail in the coffin. And I'm like, no,
you're the one episode of Ahsoka. You got to watch the episode of Ahsoka.
She's right.
You have to.
Which one is that?
It's the one.
It's the one.
Tell me the episode number.
Number 5. Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
You have to watch it. It's 5. Like peak Star. It is peak Star Wars. It is legitimately like I think I cried at the end of it a little bit.
Same.
I think I cried at the end of it. It was just like,
we're asking a lot, Ian. I know.
Just the one episode. 5. Just the one. Don't watch the rest of the season.
Nope.
Just the one. Just 5.
Just 5.
I promise you.
Yep.
I promise you.
I'll endorse that promise.
I'll make you a deal. My time is worth $50 an hour. So if I go and watch a half hour, I'm expecting $25 out of both of you.
What's your
You can Venmo me. No. All right. Well, okay. Hey, Bill, how you doing?
What? Who? Where?
What?
I don't know what any of you guys are talking about.
It's Star Wars stuff.
Okay. Well, and then Petty ends it with a W, and I think we're all W's here. Let's see. Wait, hold on. Deanne, okay, I'll give you the last word. Do something better with your time. Watch the first season of Rome, that HBO series, with Kevin McKidd and star of Ahsoka, Ray Stevenson.
I think.
Yeah.
Rome season 1 walked so Game of Thrones could run.
Now we're talking. Yep.
I heard great things about
HBO stuff. Yeah.
The old HBO stuff, Rome, especially that first season. It's sad that the set caught fire, but yeah, in real life, though, like half the set burnt down.
Were there extras fiddling as Rome burned? Anyway, Mark. I gotta let people get out of here. So, thank you very much, everybody. If you liked this live stream, please. We got 27 people watching right now. If you had all liked this live stream, please give a like and a subscribe and all that good stuff. We definitely appreciate you hanging out. Whether you liked Godzilla Minus One or Star Wars or The Witcher, or any of the other million things we talked about, Warhammer. I don't know.
Henry's Wood.
And Henry's Wood, yes. Please show some love. Please show some love to all of Earth's Mightiest critics, including Bill. I think you're officially on the roster now, whether you want to be or not.
He's like, after tonight, are you kidding?
You fucking guys. Yeah, I know.
Get out of here.
After all of this, all their stuff is down below. Please follow them and appreciate their work. And join us back here next week when we are going to be talking about Inside Out 2, for better or worse. Okay. That's not the actual title of the movie. I just threw that last part in. Yeah. And then I think in 2 weeks, because I want to talk about it, 25th anniversary of South Park, bigger, longer, and uncut. You want to talk about the anti-diversity. No, I guess Chef was in it. Does that count? No. We're going to talk about.
You're going to say that, but I'm going to argue for the South Park guys. I think South Park is more diverse and more before its time than we give it.
Oh yeah, I'm being cheeky. I think
it's so funny.
Anyway,
but it's people that are afraid to like it. No, they're not.
He's gonna WWE. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
No, South Park was, I'm sorry to say, well before your time, Annie. I was there at the beginning, and yes, it was a cultural phenomenon. We will talk about that in a couple of weeks. I think it's a great offbeat pairing with Inside Out too. But until next time, whatever that is, whenever that is. Thanks everybody very much. Take care and watch Godzilla Minus One. Let us know what you think about it in the comments. We'll check them out and maybe revisit on a future episode. Take care. And